Oh, BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions. And once again, I gotta deal with some surprise intel because we're dealing with another breaking news scenario. Because Koichi Sakamoto, one of the action directors of certain tokusatsu, from the stunt director and head stunt coordinator between MMPR Season 3 to Power Rangers Ninja Storm, and an executive producer of the franchise until RPM ended, alongside several Kamen Rider and Super Sentai episodes, seasons, and specials, including Girls Remix. And we should be getting that third installment of Girls Remix pretty soon. So let's see what Koichi Sakamoto had to say about that in an interview about the installment with Weekly Playboy, especially in regards to what he said about female Kamen Riders, which is interesting. So let's discuss. So the interviewer asked about the background to the series, and Sakamoto says, Revice was also a production commemorating the 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider's birth, and more spin-off works than usual were made. Among them, the suggestion to bring together all the female writers from the past, with John as the main character, came from producer Mochizuki Taku. I also worked on the V Cinema Next Uchu Sentai Q Ranger vs. Space Squad in 2018, which brought together past villains from the Super Sentai, and I felt that it was well received by fans. This time we decided to make it a reality with all the heroines from the Kamen Rider series. Oh, I haven't seen Q Ranger vs. Space Squad, but I do know people appreciated it or were intrigued because Hammy was like the fourth most neglected member of the 12 Q Rangers, so she gets more to do as a focal point, especially since people thought the returning villains meant it was an April Fool's prank, only to reveal it was that serious, and from what I heard, tied Melee and Hammy's comparison pretty well, so if it worked with Sentai, why not do it with Rider? Besides, I know of certain people, they were kind of pissed with Revice's Rider for allegedly giving Sakura a lot to do, because Kinoshita requested a female primary writer and he got laughed in his face at, something I feel we should be calling out Toei executives for, but no, turns out Mizuzuchi Taku worked on Gaim, Drive, Revice, Zyuohger, Q Ranger, and Care Major, and all of them except Drive has a woman able to henshin, so it's clear a writer wasn't the only one who wanted something to do with suited women. Okay, so the interviewer also says, although the appearance of female writers has been increasing recently, the main characters of the story are still boys. It was very refreshing to see a story where only girls gather together and fight. And Sakamoto responded, it's a 50-year-old series with a male writer as the main character, and I think it's a project that would have been difficult to realize in a TV series or film version, including the development of various related products. In recent years, major works overseas, such as Star Wars and Mad Max, have been produced one after another, with the main character being a fighting woman. Japan can't afford to be left behind. So I refuse to talk about Star Wars on this channel for multiple reasons, but I do respect the fact that they basically admitted, yeah, the executives probably wouldn't want to have that big of a risk as a female writer for their main show, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't just try to not exclude women in their projects. He also said, in the midst of this, I've also noticed a change in the demand for special effects in recent years. For example, whenever I go to stage greetings or events for theatrical releases, the majority of the audience is female. This is probably because there are more fans of the cast, but I also see many people with character items in their bags, and who are fans of special effects and follow them. My impression is that a while ago, most of the audience was male. First off, because this is translated with Google Translate, whenever you hear the term special effects, just realize that they're saying tokusatsu. But yeah, I talked about this in another video, but I looked at some of the greetings at events with theatrical releases, like with Gotchard, and I did see a fair number of women in the audience. Now, regardless of what you think about women in this franchise, I think a franchise that's able to pull in people with different demographics is a sign that the show or series is doing well, to the point where if they're also making products with certain toku characters, and people working on the show are realizing that they have another audience, they should and can capitalize on doing something both in their show and outside of that show in order to get as many people as possible. Then he goes on to say, also, heroine-related merchandise is selling really well. When I was a kid, there was an atmosphere where it was embarrassing to say I like heroines, and when I think about the fact that there weren't any toys or merchandise released for heroines alone, I feel like the times have changed a lot. In addition to this trend, the creation of a medium for special effects fans called TTF, which is Toei Tokusatsu Fan Club, is a big factor. I've always admired strong women, and I wanted to portray the heroines of the Kamen Rider series as just being as strong as the boys, so I'm really glad I was able to make that happen. And that's a good thing, because some of the female characters who become writers, getting some of the toys and items associated with them locked in premium Bandai sales instead, there's been this belief that female writers aren't increasing sales. But considering Reiwa has been consistent in making at least 20 billion yen a season, and all but GAF have had women become suited writers, I don't think having more action women ruined the brand like certain people would say. Plus, we know that with Gotchard, more girls were tuning in to watch it after Precure much more than other series. So it's not just older women wanting to watch for hot men in BL scenes. And when you look at some of the other Toei and Tokusatsu shows like Super Sentai, Power Rangers, and Precure, Kamen Rider sells the most out of all of them, but all of them do have an audience of male and female fans, Kamen Rider included, and social stigmas against women being able to be in these shows or just enjoying women in a boys-related show have either mitigated or improved so people can enjoy both. Considering Heisei Phase 1 was killing almost all their female Kamen Riders, or like was a mandate to where we are now, yeah, no surprise with all the female heroines, supporting allies, villains, and actresses involved, some of which Sakamoto has worked with, so of course he'd be down for something like this. Plus, I feel like people forget Koichi Sakamoto is married to a stunt woman, Makoto Nagino. Who is she, you ask? Remember the A-Squad Pink Ranger from Power Rangers SPD? Her actress is Koichi Sakamoto's wife. Allegedly, she was a stunt woman and actually doubled for a lot of the female Power Rangers and their suit footage. She was it for almost every female main character in Wild Force, Tori, Mara, and Capri in Ninja Storm, Kira and Elsa in Dino Thunder, every female character in SPD, Maddie in Mystic Force, Rose in Mirror Tricks in Overdrive, Lily, Camille, Master Queen, and Stingarella in Jungle Fury, and Gemma and Tanaya in RPM, and even Mia in Samurai. She was even Maji Blue and Maji Ranger and did stunts for O-Range and Car Ranger. Unfortunately, I don't think she does stunts anymore unless she has just not been credited. But he married someone who's been doing stunt fighting for heroines in 2 Tokusatsu series. So why would he have a problem organizing stunts for another? Then again, it does make sense a cast member who's worked with women has more respect for women in his franchise than certain fans, but hey, why respect people that just happen to be a different gender? Am I right? The interviewer also said, the cast is always amazing. There are many people who say, I'm playing this character for the first time in over a decade, and just looking at group photos makes me feel emotional. What are the key points you consider when casting? So Sakamoto responded, the first installment focused on Sakura and Hana, and the second and third installments focused on Rinne. I first thought about who would be interesting to have involved and who would be needed to make the story work. However, even if there was a character I wanted to appear in the story, there was nothing I could do if the cast schedules didn't match up. Sometimes things don't go as planned. The puzzle-like process of progressing through the script while checking the feeling at the time of the offer and figuring out who will appear is both exciting and difficult. Big issue I've heard people talk about why all are concerned about who isn't and isn't coming back, and we kind of had a feeling that schedule conflicts would play a factor. They got Tsukuyomi's actress to return as she was going through retirement, something none of us had expected. Yaiba's actress apparently blew up after 01, but she cared enough to drop in and do some voice work despite having a busy schedule while saving Rinko. And while some see this as an inferior outsiders, despite the fact that Girls Remix came out first, but who's counting? Whoever's schedule aligns with them in order to come back, I will always be happy and grateful for. And remember, some of these ladies have not come back to the franchise in at least 10 years, and it's really telling they could just blend in and really appreciate stepping into the role of the characters that help shape who they are and their careers. Koichi said, while watching, I felt the presence of Narumi Akiko, played by Yamamoto Hikaru, from Kamen Rider Double. She's the only character to appear in all 3 installments. In the series, she serves as a leader who brings the girls together, and it felt like she was the one who created this sense of unity. Sakamoto responded to the Playboy interviewer, that's exactly right. By taking advantage of her detective career, she can move the story forward just by opening her notebook and saying, I've looked into it, and her cheerfulness makes her interesting no matter who she's paired with. Also, Hikaru, who plays her, is a genius comedian, or comedian near. Whatever. Even her outlandish acting doesn't come off as annoying. She's really good at finding the right balance. She's had a long career, and I think she's an inspiration to young actresses. With her, Girls Remix could go on forever. Okay, so I know Akiko is arguably the most divisive aspect of Double. Like, I get why people hate her, but she does have character development, and the show does call her out on her flaws and her drive to try and improve them. And even if you find her annoying, she's made you laugh at least once. Also, it's just really funny having her technically be the weakest member of Girls Remix, but still being able to knock out mooks with slippers. And I'm glad that people behind their shows have faith in their actors. Plus, I saw Girls Remix 1 and 2. She really blended in with both casts pretty well. Alright, next part. They say in the second installment, Kanon Mihara, who was Kogo's actress, the second of the 3 Dark Sisters in Gotchard, appeared as Nozomi Takai in Kamen Rider Amazons. Her exchange with Rinne, Clotho, and her responding, "What are you talking about?" was hilarious, which, yeah, it was. Sakamoto responded with that the viewer would want to make a comment. Amazon's was originally a Prime Video exclusive, but with the lifting of the ban on distribution and other services in 2023, it became possible for it to appear in TTFC original works as well. So we actively try to incorporate material that fans will notice. Another example would be characters that are enemies of the girls. The first one features Miss Titan, whose plots revolve the secret organization Black Satan, which appeared in Kamen Rider Stronger, and Black Tackle, who was the first transforming heroine in the Rider series, the radio human Tackle, who was set to undergo brainwashing surgery. The second one features Kamen Rider Marika, who transforms into Minato Yoko, played by Minanami Suki, who appeared in Kamen Rider Gaim as the villain. I think fans of the older series will recognize him right away. One of the highlights is seeing the new generation heroine defeat an enemy from the past. So I had no idea that using Amazons and other media could cause some issues, hence why the Amazon writers didn't get that much to do in Cho's superhero Tizen. So it's cool to see that the ban got lifted, and it's also cool to know that Black Tackle is considered what if the original Tackle got brainwashed. As for Nozomi and Amazons being possible in Gotchard's world, look, I think people need to chill out about that one. See, Decade Build and Zio introduced the concept of parallel worlds. The events of one Rider series either didn't happen or in another parallel world, or did happen, but events went a little bit different. For all we know, maybe in Gotchard's world, there was an Amazons event in a different city, but they got rid of almost all the Amazons, and the team has helped out in other ways. Besides, we know that they didn't have time to put Clotho's origin in the show, so using this as an opportunity for crossover parallels and having that as an explanation is just a fun continuity egg for fans. Who's to say Glideon didn't encounter her and she barely escaped after intense battles in order to get her DNA in order to make Clotho as a homunculi? It's harmless. So Sakamoto confirms that he actually met Rina Koke, who appears in the third installment on another set. She had said she wanted to be in it, and Makoto Okunaka saw Yuko Takayama, who also appeared in Kamen Rider Wizard, appear in the first installment, and heard from Yuko that she wanted to appear in it too. He further rationalizes that the Super Sentai series has a crossover called the Versus series, where the current Sentai team and the previous year Sentai team appeared together, but the Kamen Rider series doesn't often have collaborations that transcend the boundaries of different works. In that sense, it's nice to see Girls Remix creating connections between cast members across generations, which I agree with. So, like Rina Koke Shizuka from Kiva, and she's done a decent number of roles after her show ended. And yeah, Makoto Okunaka is Koyomi's actress from Wizard, who saw Rinko's actress from the same show appear in the first Girls Remix. And it's pretty cool one was inspired to come back based on another one showing up. Also, yeah, doing a crossover between the current and previous season makes sense. So I'm thinking Kamen Riders should create their own crossovers from more than just the two seasons next to each other is a risk I'm glad they were able to take. The interviewer also asked, as this is a spin-off that focuses on the heroine, are there any differences in the story structure from the main story? Sakamoto responded, I was very conscious of not making the viewer feel uncomfortable by not having a male rider. It feels strange when monsters are rampaging through the city but no other riders appear. I could have depicted it as a completely parallel world, but I wanted to depict Girls Remix based on historical Kamen Rider journey of the heroines. Special incidents that only the girls can solve break out, the story progresses at a good pace, and the existence of other riders is hinted at in conversations here and there. By doing so, viewers can become immersed in the story without feeling out of place. Now, I'm not sure if Sakamoto means that in a normal Kamen Rider season, other riders from other shows shouldn't interfere, but I'm glad they didn't make it a parallel world. Like I said, Kamen Rider does have a multiverse, and who's to say things didn't play out similarly in different shows, but with a few tweaks to make it so that some seasons got the same events, but both parties are just too busy to interact with each other or in just different cities. Superheroism is time-consuming. Besides, while some people love to use Toku to bash anything made out of outside Japan, I will say yes, you can have a story all about the women in the franchise and not be weirded out by it. Because certain crowds love to say that every media is an attack on men. They're not. But they focus on taking these characters and giving them a threat to unite. Heck, most of the men in the Girls Remix specials that show up are foot soldiers or androids anyway, so there's no sexist war, and the villains are almost always women there. Plus, they mention heroes like George and Fuga helping out behind the scenes anyway, or at least being brought up as inspirations for the others. Speaking of which, the interviewer also says, indeed, the first installment, while John and Aguilera are fighting, Izu from Kamen Rider 01 appears and entrusts them with the power-up item, the vice stamp saying, I received this from George Karasaki-san, the genius scientist who appears in Revice. Sakamoto responded, that's right. In any case, I make it a priority to depict a worldview that is continuous with each work, so that there is no sense of contradiction. That way, fans of each work can easily get into it, and their imaginations can expand. However, that means a lot of homework on the production side. There are works I wasn't involved with, and there are settings I have forgotten. Each time it starts with the staff, including myself, rewatching each work. That's when TTFC comes in handy. We can rewatch them anytime, anywhere. I think this project wouldn't be possible without love for the Kamen Rider series. Like I said, the continuity is one of the best parts of Girls Remix, and considering he's working with Uchida, which, say what you will about his writing, he and Takahashi are great lore keepers for any crossover events. And I'm glad Koichi admits, yeah, there's a lot of lore and stuff you have to get right, so you can get the crossover aspects and interactions that are respectful and feel rewarding. And the Toei Tokusatsu fan club is definitely a resource that benefits them in doing so. It's not easy to do, but even Power Ranger has and really should benefit from doing this more often. I'll send you my link for my first video review of Girls Remix, but there are some great interactions that work only because of that dedication to respect continuity and everything that the girls have went through, as well as the heroes that they also worked alongside. Weekly Playboy then asked, I think the set is made up of entirely female cast members. Is the atmosphere different from the usual Kamen Rider sets? And Sakamoto answered, it's really glamorous. All of the staff are smiling more than usual. However, the cast members have about a year of experience working on special effects sets, so they can switch instantly when it's time to wrap things up. Even the cast members who didn't get much exposure to action in the main story are taking the challenge seriously in this film. There's a sense of fulfillment in having a group of people I can trust. Well, always good to know there's positivity on the set of a Kamen Rider show. That being said, even the cast members who didn't get that much exposure to action in the main story are taking the challenge serious in the film. It makes me wonder if some of the cast are using Girls Remix to give their characters some opportunity to be more active than they usually were in their series, which I see as more of a knock against their shows for underusing them. But even then, Girls Remix has proven my point that you can have suited and non-suited women in the same series and make it work out. Remember, the first installment had 6 suited women and 4 non-suited women because Kanon couldn't transform, and if I count Yua as an ally, that's 7. Majay 2 had 3 suited users in Hana, Reika, and Rene. 4 if you count Sophia helping out, with 3 non-suited women in Akiko, Nayuta, well, as a new recruit, and then Sawa returning as well as Nozomi returning. So even in Girls Remix 3, Majeda's right now 1 rider going up against 3 villainesses. Miyami's becoming a Dopant, the Heat one. Glada's a monster, and Kayomi's Wise Man too. Unless the speculation Suzuka is becoming Kivala, yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing how this plays out. Considering people have argued Glada, Majeda, and some women were underused or could have been used more, yeah, it gives them an opportunity to shine if they're the main characters this time. Heck, we don't even know if Sara or if Sara's going to transform. We know Nayuta's coming back and Akiko's still there, so it's technically 1 suited woman, 2 women with potential to transform, and 2 women who don't transform, so we'll see what happens. Speaking of which, Weekly Playboy points out the 3rd installment has a Halloween party theme. Everyone's costumes look amazing. Sakamoto's answer is the October release date has already been decided, so producer Minato suggested we tie it in with Halloween. The cast costumes were designed by stylist Murase Masahiro, who is himself a special effects fan and has worked with us on numerous productions. We first worked together on the film Kamen Rider X Kamen Rider Wizard and Forze Movie War Ultimatum. In fact, at the end of the first Girls Remix series, everyone is interviewed for a magazine and there's a still photo shoot scene, and Murase was also in charge of styling for that. So I didn't write that part in the script, but yeah, at the end of the first Girls Remix, like, you have all 10 women who showed up basically just doing a photo shoot, and it's really just fun to see them, especially since they make homages to past series. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised that it was Halloween party, but it is coming out in October, and we do celebrate Halloween in October, so why not just get ahead of the curve? Personally, I could put the Gooners Beware jokes, but wanting to make the women more stylish is not inherently a bad thing. Not every example is fetish fuel, even if some people do kind of over-exaggerate it. Gonna skip ahead to where Weekly Playboy asks him about qualities he looks for in a heroine though. Now, I'd like to ask you again if there are any qualities you look for a heroine, said the interviewer. Sakamoto responded, one thing I often tell the cast is the power of their eyes. Physical strength is attractive in its own way, but the most important thing is mental strength. No matter how good a kicking technique you are, if you don't have the strength in your eyes and facial expressions, you won't be convincing to watch. Even a comedy character like Akiko can only be enjoyed if she's convincing. I tell the cast that any physical weakness will be covered by the way they are filmed, so I ask them to be confident and give cool performances. Playboy Weekly responds, that's true. No matter which heroine you imagine, they all have powerful eyes. Sakamoto says, on top of that, when shooting action scenes with the heroine, I'm conscious of showing beauty in her strength. For example, by using slow motion to capture the swaying of her hair and clothes. Of course, power is important, but unless it's necessary for the story, I don't often use battle scenes in which the woman's expression changes and she roars. Now, I get where he's coming from, well, sort of. A performance is only as believable as the confidence the actor gives them, especially if the director can carry out their vision to the fullest extent. That being said, in terms of battle expression changes, I think for some instances you should have their expression fit the scene because women can be vulnerable and angry. But I get what he means to ensure that they're not going out of character. And I'll let you guys engage with this next part. By the way, it seems director Sakamoto sometimes looks at gravure photos as inspiration for casting. Sakamoto said, when casting, I make sure to check magazines and various other media so I can make suggestions. I check Weekly Playboy in particular frequently, as it often features actors I've worked with before. Sometimes the actor himself gets angry and says, what, you haven't read it? So I do check it. That's scary, Weekly responds. What do you use as inspiration? He says, looking at Sakamoto's gravure photos, you can see which talents are currently popular and on the rise. What type of activities are they doing? What kind of charms do they have? Using this information as a reference, you can also check their eye power and facial expressions. Gravure photos also require acting skills, so they are useful references. For example, Momosuke Shiko, who played the email-female executive Yorona in Machine Santa Kira Major in 2020, has a powerful gaze that draws you in, even when you look at her gravure photos. Considering Yorona got Kira Major trending with her appearance and reveal causing a massive shift, yeah, I'm gonna be fair, not everything gravure means smut or porn. Gravure usually refers to Japanese female models aged between preteens to early 30s, basically like women that show up in fashion magazines. Yeah, there is sexualization sometimes, but not always. And Weekly Playboy's interviewer responds, I see, this is very helpful for Weekly Playboy as well. After hearing your story, I would like to see more of the heroines of special effects in the future, tokusatsu, starting with Girls Remix. Sakamoto responded, if I have another opportunity, I would like to make Girls Remix even more diverse. I would also like to see people who haven't participated yet appear, and I think it would be interesting to see the appearance of a new heroine that is unique to Girls Remix. Please look forward to future developments. Which I'm happy to hear. Anyone willing to return from any season who they get back for Girls Remix is awesome, and I'm looking forward to see who returns. So yeah, glad this interview came out and to see that people behind tokusatsu are aware they have female fans and people who not only care about the heroines, but also knowing that Japan has people buying merchandise off of them. But I'll leave questions for all of you. What surprised you about this interview and Koichi Sakamoto? What characters would you want to see return for Girls Remix? Have you watched either Girls Remix movie and will you tune in for Halloween? Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, and BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.